Welcome to Biz Tips with Jenny Rice, bringing you insights from real entrepreneurs. No fluff, just raw, practical strategies from those who've been in the trenches. Whether you're launching, scaling, or pivoting, this podcast is your backstage pass to lessons, successes, and game-changing tips. Get ready to learn, take action, and level up. Let's dive in with our next guest.
Hi, this is Jenny Rice, Biz Tips Podcast. I'm so very excited about our guest today. We've got Maxwell Ivey, who's the founder of the Accessibility Advantage. So welcome, Maxwell.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you having me on the podcast, and I look forward to us having a great conversation today.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it too. So start off a little bit about your background, because you have such a fascinating background and a story to tell.
Thank you. So I grew up in a family of carnival owners in the Houston, Texas area. I also knew from a fairly early age that eventually I would lose most, if not all, of my vision to retinitis pigmentosa. But thanks to encouragement from friends, family members, teachers, scoutmasters, and others, I graduated from traditional high school and college, and I'm one of the few blind Eagle Scouts. I was lucky enough to be part of my family's business for over 15 years before my dad's death caused our carnival to go out of business. And then I needed something to do with myself, so I started helping people sell their used rides on the internet. And at that time, accessibility was non-existent, so I had to teach myself how to code HTML just to get online. And so in 2012, when I migrated to WordPress, I thanked goodness for WordPress. And I thank goodness for all CMS, because they mean I don't have to chase less thans and greater thans around the screen anymore. People said I inspired them by the way I took on challenges. So I started a second podcast to talk about being a blind entrepreneur, which is The Blind Blogger at theblindblogger.net. And I was one of the few people with disabilities that was open about their disability over 10 years ago, when most people thought they had to hide their disability in order to have a successful online business. And that is something I'm very proud of. I've written books, traveled the country solo, spoken and sung at conferences. I help people get on podcasts. I teach people to start podcasts. And I eventually started my own podcast called What's Your Excuse? A few years ago, a friend asked me to help him improve accessibility on his website at podmatch.com. Great Alex Sanfilippo, my brother from another mother, as they say. And since then, I've been getting more opportunities to advise companies on accessibility, to write and speak on the subject, and to really come to understand my message, which is that accessibility isn't just a regulatory compliance. It isn't just something we have to do. It's something that benefits everyone, and the businesses who are willing to make even the smallest efforts can benefit by improving accessibility in their products, services, and content. So now I have the accessibility advantage, and I'm doing my best to educate business owners, because I know how hard it is to start a business and keep one going. And I just know that if they will embrace accessibility and include more people with disabilities, they will be able to grow their businesses somewhat faster and attract a loyal customer base.
I love that. I love your story, but how you show up and how you say, this is who I am, and it's amazing who I am, and I can help other people because of who I am and make a difference in other people's lives, which is really inspiring. So thank you for doing that. And it sounds like you're having a real impact on other businesses, because as you said, disabled people and people that with disabilities, they want to work, they want to be contributing members, they want to be part of that. And they're such loyal employees, contractors, vendors, whatever, when people realize that they can be part of their workforce, right?
Yes. And besides that, we have money and we want to spend it on things that everybody else desires, but we're looking for companies that provide them in an accessible manner. And if they will do that, we will stick with them through thick and thin. And also, thank you for bringing up the employment side of this, because the research says companies that embrace hiring people with disabilities or contractors with disabilities, that not only is there an emotional benefit to their teams and workplaces, there is a financial benefit in lower turnover and spending less time and money recruiting, training, and attracting new people, because people with disabilities are loyal, dedicated, positive, optimistic in general. But the best thing about people with disabilities, if you're going to hire us, is we by nature have to be creative problem solvers.
Makes perfect sense, right? You talked about HTML code and things like that before on the internet. Now there's different tools out there to help, people with visual disabilities or whatever it ends up being. So you're right, because you live your life with having to work around some disabilities, because you want to live a full life, obviously. And you do live a full life, so you have to solve these problems.
Yeah. And the way I've solved problems is reaching out to business owners and saying, hey, I'm somebody who's using your product or wants to, and I don't want to complain. So I'm saying hi now. If I find out there's something I need help with, I'm going to ask you for help. And just, having a friendly, neighborly approach to the whole process. Now, I have had people ask me, Max, are you saying that we don't need compliance? And I will tell them, no, I'm not saying we don't need it, but I'm saying it isn't serving our needs. We need to spend just as much time on the carrot as we've been spending for the last 50 years on the stick. And the best way we can do that is to show business owners, nonprofits, and government agency heads what is in it for them, such as improving the overall user experience of people who don't have disabilities, such as raising the search engine rankings, because Google and the other search engines have figured out how to check for accessibility, and they are giving love to websites that have been improved for accessibility. And then, of course, the marketplace. And it's not just us as a marketplace, it's all those people who know us, like us, or want to support somebody with a disability. It's a huge market, not yet really understood as to how big the market is in dollars, but it's thought it could be hundreds of billions, if not a trillion globally. The one stat I do love is that companies that embrace accessibility in their products and services will have 1.7 times more gross revenue and 2.4 times
Mm.
more net revenue.
Interesting. So the stats are there proving that. So is your mission to educate businesses about this, or to help and help them, support them, and how do they become accessible? How do they create their business, their product, their website, whatever it is, to be more accessible?
Right. So I think I'm doing both. My part of my mission is to educate people, which I do by talking about it on podcasts like yours, and I appreciate you giving me this wonderful platform, or writing for online magazines, or doing public speaking, and educating those people so that I can remove some of the fear and overwhelm around how do I make my stuff more accessible, but then also making myself available to be a direct consultant who can do a human-based evaluation of their website and help them create a roadmap towards making their website, their blog, their podcast, their social media profiles, any of their online presence, make it more accessible. So I'm doing both. Right now, I'm doing more educating than consulting. I'm honest enough to admit that. Y'all know from my LinkedIn messages back and forth that authenticity is a big part of my brand. Um, but I feel like one of the things is my overall goal is to do my small part to improve accessibility in general on the internet. Because if I educate somebody but they don't hire me, people who visit that person's website or blog will have a better experience. If they hire me to consult with them, then not only will we create a better user experience for people who have accessibilities and for people who don't, but we'll also work on those search engine rankings. And the other thing that I do that I think more people in this field need to do is content creation and product or service promotion, because the disability community is loyal. We love to support inclusive brands, but we can't support you if we don't know about you. So,
Right.
so for me, it's education, consulting, then educating their teams for people who work with me, content creation either on their site or my site, such as blog posts or podcast episodes, and then promotion, such as social media, email newsletters, or writing copy, or showing them how to make their promotional stuff more inclusive. Because as I'm sure you know, very small percentages of ads, whether they be print, online, television, whatever, a very small percentage of those is inclusive. And the
Right.
ones that are grabbing a huge audience that the rest of them are overlooking.
Makes perfect sense. Do you find that most of your clients that you work with, either educating or consulting with, are small businesses, Fortune 500 companies, who typically is motivated and sees the benefit? I'm just curious.
Well, for me personally, I find that the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, especially those in the tech sector, are more interested. I it's This is just my impression that the larger companies, they want to either use an automation option or they want to go with a more established company that can give them automation in a hybrid form with human reviewers. But I find the small to medium sized businesses, they love the way I work. They love being able to get a problem solved at a price point that is reasonable for them and is sustainable for me, you know. And they also like the fact that when they deal with me, there's no real bureaucracy. We spend all the time reviewing, recommending, updating, communicating. We don't spend very much time at all on the usual back and forth that goes into signing a contract. You know,
Right.
so I feel like I'm probably, my niche, and there's nothing is probably small to medium sized businesses. Maybe some of those will take me with me as they grow, but I just feel like that's a good fit for me. And they usually prefer the personal direct touch more than corporations do.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You're right, because the big corporations probably have departments in this, or people that are looking at that, as you said, the automation, where the smaller and medium ones, they understand the need of it, or you're educating them to understand the need of it and the desire to do it, and then you can help them more create that outcome, right?
Right. And something, you mentioned about the bigger companies that they're looking for automation. Um, the other thing they're looking for is scale, because a lot of those companies have, huge websites with expansive number of pages, and they're often concerned by, what is going to be the disruption of my website during this process. And so they usually feel more comfortable with an automation of some kind. And I just like to speak to automation because while I am a consultant and I do make my living helping people improve accessibility, there is nothing inherently evil about automation for website accessibility. The
Mhm.
thing people have to know is if you're going to do it, you want to make sure that the option you're using has been created by somebody who has a team of people with a variety of disabilities who have educated the automation to make sure that it understands what the best practices of accessibility are for a variety of disabilities using a variety of technology. And that in addition to that automation, it's backed up by the option of having human evaluators. So I do some contract work for Audio Eye, and some people are like, Max, why would you promote your competition? And it's, well, I don't see them as my competition because we're looking at two different markets. They're
Mhm.
looking at the enterprise market. I'm looking at the sauce market, and the truth is they have a really good product for
Mhm.
larger companies that can
Yeah.
invest the money. And it's a combination of automation plus human review, which is the ideal situation. Now, for smaller people who may not be able to hire me or may just want to find out about their website, there's a site called Waves. It's a free site, it's a nonprofit. You can have that do a check of your website and tell you the health of your site based on accessibility. And then the other thing you can do is, and I like making this offer because I really believe that when I improve accessibility, I'm improving the lives of disabled people who will use those websites. For anybody that listens to us on this podcast that reaches out to me at the accessibilityadvantage.com, I'll be happy to review their homepage for accessibility for free and give them a review of how accessible it is and maybe a few things they could fix quickly. And then if after that they want to hire me, fine. If they don't, fine. But I just feel like accessibility is such an important part to growing a business, especially a small to medium sized business. And I know there's a lot of fear and overwhelm around how do I do it? Where do I start? What do I do first? And so I feel like I just want to help those people get started And so y'all reach out to me and I'll give you a review of your homepage.
Love it. Love it. What a great message you have and a mission, and realizing that once people understand small businesses, medium business, there's an advantage to this. They're going to benefit. Then, wow, it's just an easier walk-in, right? You can really help them, create that accessibility piece of it, and then everybody benefits.
Right. And, for example, I've been working and continue to work with Podmatch to make sure they stay accessible, because accessibility is fragile and it can be broken if the people that continue to update or maintain a site either don't educate themselves or don't have somebody to keep them on the straight and narrow, so to speak. But so stability is an important part of it. But when I've worked with them on this website, they have actually seen a growth in their users. They have seen podcast hosts who are being able to connect with guests that they wouldn't have been able to connect with otherwise, because the word is out there that the owner, Alex Sanfilippo, cares about accessibility, and not just digital for visually impaired, but also for people who have neurodevelopmental disabilities. So they were recently nominated for a Webby because of their good work in this particular business. So they've invested a small amount in accessibility, and they've received a big return in users, user satisfaction, and positive public awareness of their business and brand.
Wow, that's a good message, a good way to finish off this podcast, in that there's a big advantage to companies, not only to their customers, but to their bottom line, to the morale in their company, everything else. So what a great message you've got. Any final tips for companies that are considering accessibility as we end this podcast?
Sure. One thing I have learned is that improving accessibility improves user experience, but I have also learned that improving user experience often will remove accessibility issues. So what I tell business owners, and I'm sure they're hearing this from their marketing people, focus on the most important thing. Why did you build a website? Why do you have a blog? What is the message? What is the mission? Focus on the most important thing and make it as easy and as short a process as possible to get from the first look at your website to evaluating information to making a connection or a purchase. Always focus on the most important thing, and you'll avoid a lot of problems that come up with accessibility.
That's a great tip. Great tip. Well, Maxwell, it's been so great having you on the podcast. I've learned something and been inspired by you. So I appreciate you being as a guest here today.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I'm always happy that I can educate and inspire, especially if I can have an impact on the host, because I don't see this as an interview. I see this as a first meeting between people who are probably going to be friends. So I look forward to talking with you again, and I hope that your viewers and your listeners enjoy what we've shared today. And I really do hope they will just start where they are and start taking some small little steps towards being more accessible.
That's great. Thank you, Maxwell, for being a guest today. This is Jenny Rice with my very special guest today, Maxwell Ivey. Thank you again for being here.
That's a wrap on this episode of Biz Tips. For more insights, join us online. We share exclusive tips, resources, and strategies to help you grow and scale your business. Until next time, keep building, innovating, and making an impact.